we have, what is the difference between Jesus and a prostitute? Jesus
a
and a prostitute. The look on their face when you nail them. Oh my God!
I like these religious stories.
You're going to hell. You know that,
God.
don't you?
All right, now I'll go into a long one, and then I'm going to hand things off to Wynott. So what do we have here? We got two crocodiles are sitting at the side of the river, right? The smaller crocodile turns to the bigger one. He says, I can't understand how you could be so much bigger than me. We're the same age. We were the same size as kids. I don't get it. And the big croc says, well, what have you been eating? Right? And the little crocodile says, same as you, politicians. Right? Oh. And the big croc says, well, where do you catch them? And, the crocodile says, well, over there on the other side of the river, near Parliament, near Parliament Park in Pretoria. Big crocodile thinks, well, same here. How do you catch them? How do you catch them? Right? The little crocodile says, well, I crawl up from under the big Lexus or BMW or Mercedes, whatever it is, wait for them to unlock the car door. I jump out, grab them by the leg, shake the shit out of them, and eat them. Right? And then the big crocodile says, there's your problem. You see, you're not getting any nourishment. By the time you finish shaking the shit out of a politician, there's nothing left but an arsehole with a briefcase.
Oh, I like that.
And with that, we'll now head things off to Wynott. So Wynott, get up here and make us laugh.
I'm kind of weighted down by this algae here. I can't get my view in good, but I'm zooming in to see if I can see the audience. There you are. Yeah, I've been sick, boys and girls. My husband works at Walmart and he cleans the bathrooms. Can you imagine the shit he brings home to me? Yeah, well, literally. I was at a magic show when, after one particularly amazing trick, somebody screamed out, "Wow, how'd you do that?" "I would tell you," answered the magician predictably, "but then I'd have to kill you." And after a moment's pause, the same voice, which was Randy, screamed out, "Can you tell my ex-wife?" Married men, they live a lot longer than single men, but married men are more willing to die. Losing a wife can be hard. In most cases, it's damn near impossible. Those were my Randy jokes. Okay. So this wife arrived home after a long shopping trip and was horrified to find her husband in bed with a young, lovely thing. And just as she was about to storm out of the house, her husband stopped her with these words: "Before you leave, I want to hear how this all came about. Driving home, I saw this young girl looking poor and tired, so I offered her a ride," he said. "She was really hungry, so I brought her home and I fed her some of the roast that you'd forgotten about in the refrigerator. Her shoes were worn out, so I gave her a pair of your shoes you didn't wear because they were out of style for you. She was so cold, I gave her that new birthday sweater you never wore even once because the color didn't suit you. Her slacks were worn out, so I gave her a pair of yours that you don't fit in anymore." And as she was about to leave the house, she paused and asked me, "Is there anything else your wife doesn't use anymore?" And so here we are. So my skydiving instructor would always take time to answer any of our stupid first-timer questions. One guy asked, "If our chute doesn't open and the reserve doesn't open, how long we got till we hit the ground?" And the jump master looked at him in perfect deadpan and said, "The rest of your life." It's so true. This stranger was seated next to little Johnny on a plane when the stranger turned to little Johnny and said, "Let's talk. I've heard that flights go quicker. Strike up a conversation with your fellow passenger." Little Johnny, who had just opened his book, closed it real slowly and said to the stranger, "What would you like to discuss?" "Well, I don't know," said the stranger. "How about nuclear power?" "Okay," said little Johnny. "That could be an interesting topic. Let me ask you a question first. A horse, a cow, and a deer all eat grass, the same stuff, yet a deer excretes little pellets while the cow turns out flat patties and a horse makes clumps of dried grass. Now, why do you suppose that is? Geez, says the stranger. I have no idea. Well then, says little Johnny, how is it you feel qualified to discuss nuclear power when you don't know shit? Harry and his wife are having a hard financial time, so they decide that she's going to become a hooker. She's not quite sure what to do, so Harry says, just stand in front of that barn, pick up a guy, tell him you charge $100. If you got a question, I'll be parked around the corner. She's standing there 5 minutes, and this guy pulls up and says, how much? She says, $100, and he says, all I got's 30. She says, hold on, and she runs back to Harry and goes, what can he get for 30? A hand job, Harry says. She runs back and tells the guy all he gets for $30 is a hand job, so he agrees. She gets in the car, he unzips his pants, and out pops his huge. She stares at it for a minute and says, I'll be right back. And she runs back to Harry and says, own this guy $70. There's this blonde. She gets on a plane and sits in the first available seat, and the flight attendant is coming around checking tickets. She looks at the blonde woman's ticket and says, ma'am, you can't sit here. Your ticket says coach. This is first class. Please move to the back. Blonde says, I'm a blonde. I'm smart. I got a good job. I am not moving until the plane arrives in Jamaica. So the flight attendant, now hot under the collar, at Blonde's response, goes to another flight attendant and tells him what happened. So he goes up to her, and he asks her to move to the back. And then she says, I am a blonde. I'm smart. I've got a good job. I am not moving until this plane arrives in Jamaica. So the two flight attendants are steaming mad by now. They go to the co-pilot, tell him what's going on. He comes back to the blonde. He leans over and whispers in her ear, and the two flight attendants are astonished that the blonde abruptly got up from her seat, moved to the back of the plane immediately. They looked at each other and then the co-pilot, and they said, what the heck did you tell her? The co-pilot, feeling good about himself, said, oh, this happened a while back with someone else. I just simply told her the front half of the plane wasn't going to Jamaica. These two old guys, Abe and Saul, they went on a park bench. They're feeding pigeons and talking about baseball. And Abe turns to Saul and says, do you think there's baseball in heaven? Saul thinks a minute and says, I don't know, but let's make a deal. If I die first, I'll come back and tell you if there's baseball in heaven. And if you die first, you do the same. They shake on it. And sadly, a few months later, poor Abe passed on. Soon afterwards, Saul sat in the park feeding pigeons all by himself, and he hears a voice whispering, Saul, Saul. Saul says, Abe, is that you? Yes, it is. It is me, Saul. Yes, it is Saul, says Abe's ghost. And Saul's amazed. He says, so, is there baseball in heaven? Well, says Abe, I've got good news and bad news. Give me the good news first, says Saul. Abe says, well, there is baseball in heaven. And Saul says, that's great. What news could be bad enough to ruin that? And Abe sighs and whispers, you're pitching on Friday. This elderly Canadian gentleman of 83 arrived in Paris by plane. At the French customs desk, the man took a few minutes to locate his passport and his carry-on bag. You have been to France before, monsieur? The customs officer asked sarcastically. The elderly gentleman admitted he had been to France previously. Then you should know enough to have your passport ready. The Canadian said, the last time I was here, I didn't have to show it. Impossible. Canadians always have to show your passport on arrival in France. Canadian senior gave the Frenchman a long, hard look, and then he quietly explained, well, when I came ashore at Juno Beach on D-Day in 1944 to help liberate this country, I couldn't find any Frenchmen to show it to. Ever since I was a kid, I always had fear of somebody under my bed at night. So I went to a psychiatrist and I told him that I've got problems. Every time I go to bed, I think there's somebody under it and I'm scared, think I'm going crazy. And the psychiatrist said, just put yourself in my hands for 1 year. Come talk to me 3 times a week, and we should be able to get rid of those fears. Well, how much do you charge, I asked. $80 a visit, says the doctor. I said, well, I'll sleep on it, and if needed, I'll come back to you. 6 months later, the psychiatrist met me out on the street. Why didn't you come to see me about those fears you were having, he asked. I said, well, $80 a visit 3 times a week for a year's an awful lot of money, and a bartender cured me for $10. I was so happy to have saved all that money, I went and bought me a new SUV. Is that so? A bit of attitude, the psychiatrist said. And how, may I ask, did the bartender cure you? I said, well, he told me to cut the legs off the bed.
Hey, that's clever.
This guy walks in a bar or a restaurant. He goes to the bartender and asks, how much for a beer? Bartender says, $1. Customer's totally shocked, amazed. He orders a beer and says, well, how much for a New York sirloin with a side of mashed potatoes and salad and an entire cheesecake for dessert? And the bartender says, $5. The guy's amazed again, and he orders everything. And after he's done eating his meal, he says, man, this place is amazing. I really wish I could meet the owner of this place. And the bartender says, well, he's upstairs in his office with my... He says, what's he doing upstairs in his office with your wife? And the bartender says, the same thing I'm doing to his business down here.
That's great.
This guy walks in a pub and he sees a sign hanging over the bar. It says, cheeseburger, $1.50. Chicken sandwich, $2.50. Hand job, $10. He walks up to the bar and beckons to one of the 3 exceptionally attractive blondes who are serving drinks. Can I help you? She asked. Well, I was wondering, said the man. You the one who gives the hand jobs? Oh, yeah, she purrs. I am. He goes, well, can you wash your hands? I want a cheeseburger. This gorgeous woman one day walks in a doctor's office, and the doctor's bowled over how stunningly awesome she is. All his professionalism goes right out the window. He tells her to take her pants off. She does, and he starts rubbing her thighs. Do you know what I'm doing? Asked the doctor. Oh, yes, she says, checking for abnormalities. He tells her to take off her shirt and bra, and she takes them off. He starts rubbing her breasts, and he says, do you know what I'm doing now? And she says, oh, yes, you're checking for cancer. Finally, he tells her to take off her panties. He lays her on the table, gets on top of her, and starts having sex with her. He says, do you know what I'm doing now? She says, well, yeah, you're getting herpes. That's why I'm here.
Oh, my gosh.
Hung Chow calls into work and says, hey, boss, I not come work today. I really sick. I got headache, stomach ache, my leg hurt. I not come work. Boss says, you know, Hung Chow, I really need you today. When I feel like this, I go to my wife. I tell her to give me sex. It makes everything better. I can go to work. You go try. 2 hours later, Hung Chow calls again. Boss, I do what you say. I feel great. I be at work soon. You got a nice house, by the way, boss. And my last one. A priest and a shepherd from Australia participate in a TV game. After answering all the questions, there's a tie. So they're both given one final assignment. It's to write a poem in 3 minutes using the word Timbuktu, city in Africa. Well, the priest returns with the fruit of his inspiration. He says, I was a father all my life. I had no children, had no wife. I read the Bible through and through on my way to Timbuktu. And the poem makes a great impression, and the priest smells a sweet victory. But then comes the shepherd with his winning masterpiece. When Tim and I to Brisbane went, we met 3 women cheap to rent. They were 3 and we were 2, so I booked 1 in Timbuktu.
Hey, that's great.
Give it up for Wynott, everybody.